Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 188 based on novel. So let's start. Hui Yuhao looked at Tang Wutong with both happiness and love brimming from his eyes. Even though she was blushing, Tang Wutong could not take her eyes off Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao opened his arms and brought her into his embrace. As he hugged her soft and warm body tightly, he could sense the Haodong power which was still pulsating through their bodies. He gently said, "Wutong, I am now certain that my Donga has returned." "Thank you." Tang Wutong gently replied. Hui Yuhao smiled, "I should be the one thanking you instead. Do you know your return has given me a new lease on life?" Tang Wutong whispered, "And why do you think it would be different for me? Do you know how I felt earlier? What did it feel like?" Hui Yuhao asked curiously. Tang Wutong replied, "I felt complete. Finally complete." "Complete?" Hui Yuhao was confused. Tang Wutong said, "Yes. Do you remember the day when I witnessed you take 9 cuts for me? After the sight of you sustaining 18 wounds awakened the memories in my head, I felt as if I was the product of many different souls. I had a lot of different memories in my head, and everything just felt super confusing. Even though Donga's memories were the bulk of it, because she was only recently awakened, my memories and hers constantly came into conflict. Hence, I was in a lot of pain during that time. In fact, I didn't even know who I was, Tang Wutong or Wang Donga. But now it's different. Everything has become so much clearer. It no longer matters whether I'm Tang Wutong or Wang Donga. You have made me experience and understand a lot of things. Donga's memories are now completely integrated with mine, and I am now complete. I am both Tang Wutong and Wang Donga. But no matter what my name is, you will always be my love." As she spoke, she hugged Hui Yuhao tightly, and stuck her satisfied face into his embrace. "That's right. No matter what your name is, you will always be my love." Hui Yuhao repeated Tang Wutong's words. Sometimes, not speaking could be a stronger expression of love than any words. This session had allowed them to rediscover the love they had for one another. Even though Wang Donga had changed her name, she was still the Donga who loved him. "If the two of you plan to perform for all of us old folks, could you please hurry up? If not, can you scram back to your Tang sect? In these 7 days, both of you have absorbed a third of the energy from the golden tree. It probably won't recover from that anytime soon." Elder Xian's reprimanding voice echoed into their ears. Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong jolted and moved away from one another with blushing faces. But at the same time, they were both taken aback by Elder Xian's words. 7 days. We've been training for 7 days. Hui Yuhao was not as shocked, as his journey into the God realm made the entire thing seem a bit longer. But Tang Wutong felt that she had merely taken a nap in Hui Yuhao's loving embrace. "I'm so sorry, Elder Xian. We'll take our leave right away." Hui Yuhao dragged Tang Wutong and fled from the Sea God's pavilion. By the time they reached the outside of the Sea God's pavilion, they noticed how faint the colors of the golden tree had become just over the course of these few days. Upon seeing this, both Tang Wutong and Hui Yuhao felt an immense sense of gratitude towards their elders. The golden tree was the greatest asset and the most important foundation of Shrek Academy. Only its most outstanding disciples would be allowed to experience the origin energy of heaven and earth from the golden tree at an appropriate time. Afterwards, these disciples would then leave to carve out their own paths. Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong had experienced this previously, when Tang Wutong was still Wang Donga. Afterwards, as Hui Yuhao gained a deeper understanding of the academy, he started to understand how the golden tree by itself was a very peculiar organism. Many souls of Shrek Academy's seniors had stayed within the tree. Beyond that, it could absorb the origin energy of heaven and earth from its surroundings and consolidate it into its center. Thus, cultivation within the Sea God's pavilion was often extremely productive. But this did not mean that the members of the Sea God's pavilion could absorb the energy from the golden tree whenever they wished. In fact, all of its members had been extremely prudent, and often only absorbed a tiny bit of the origin energy. Most of them would leave the pavilion if they felt that they were about to break their training bottleneck, in fear of consuming too much energy from the golden tree, unless they determined that they were in imminent danger. Previously, when the beast wave came, the almighty beast god Dietien had led the soul beast army from the great Star Do forest. If not for the power of the golden tree, which Elder Mu and Elder Xian borrowed to trap Dietien, Shrek Academy might have turned into ruins. Hence, the golden tree could be said to be Shrek Academy's last line of defense. It was thus important for it to possess sufficient origin energy of heaven and earth. Because Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong were absorbed in their conscientious state of deep meditation, they would naturally be oblivious to the copious amount of origin energy of heaven and earth they absorbed from the golden tree. However, Elder Xian and the other elders did not stop them at all during the entire process. Hence, Hui Yuhao felt immensely grateful towards them. He knew that both Wutong and him had absorbed a large part of Shrek Academy's resources. Hui Yuhao held Tang Wutong's hand as both of them kneeled down and bowed in the direction of the golden tree. They were both thanking the elders and the golden tree for the origin energy of heaven and earth. In their short 7 days of cultivation in the conscientious state of deep meditation, their soul power had improved by an entire rank. This was a full rank increase after rank 80. Wutong, do you want to follow me back to the Tang sect? You can stay with me at the Tang sect from now on. Hui Yuhao whispered to Tang Wutong lovingly. Tang Wutong smiled, sure. I'll follow you wherever you go. Her beautiful smile made Hui Yuhao feel like loving her as he squeezed her hand tightly. Both of them flashed a smile at one another before they stood up and sprinted for the Tang sect after leaving Sea God's Island. Elder Xian stood before his room's window and watched the couple leave as a smile formed on his face. He muttered to himself, what a pair of talented individuals. Even the heavens would be jealous of their talents. Elder Mu, it seems like we have finally found you a successor. Regardless of what happens, we will help them grow quickly. Heroes are born in chaotic times. Let's just hope they'll have enough time to grow into the heroes we all deserve. In the Tang sect. Welcome back, Donga. Jiang Nan gave Tang Wutong a huge embrace as tears welled up in her beautiful eyes. News of Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong's return had spread within the Tang sect, and everyone was excited to welcome them back. Since the fated blind date, everyone in the Tang sect had learned how Tang Wutong was Wang Donga. After knowing that Wang Donga, Hui Yuhao's love, had returned, some rejoiced, while some were feeling a little disappointed. But even the disappointed ones felt happy for both of them. Very soon, the higher-ups in the Tang sect arrived. Bei Bei, Xu Sanxia, Jiang Nan, Xiao Xiao, Kai Tu, Xian Ziwen, Jiao Delu, Yi Gai, Nan Qiuqiu, Na, Ji Juechen and Jing Ziyan were all present. They were the pillars of Tang sect, and nearly all of them had stayed behind. With their help, the Tang sect seemed to be moving toward a bright future, as they helped to manufacture soul tools and continued to cultivate their own abilities. Bei Bei did not come alone. There was another person in his embrace. And that person was none other than Tang Ya. Tang Ya was still looking very pale, but one could tell that she was a lot more spirited from the look in her eyes. As she stared at Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong, she revealed a faint smile. Eldest senior brother and teacher Xiao Ya. Hui Yuhao hastily stepped forward and gave Tang Ya a concerned look. Tang Ya smiled before giving him a cheeky reply. Yuhao, you know how to grill fish, right? Those words were simple, but they surprised both Hui Yuhao and Bei Bei. Both of them stared at one another, and saw the excitement and hope in each other's eyes. Teacher Xiao Ya, you have regained your memories. Hui Yuhao asked Tang Ya excitedly. Tang Ya looked at him, but her eyes still seemed a little clouded. She muttered, Yuhao, the grilled fish was delicious. Hui Yuhao replied instantly, yes. Teacher Xiao Ya, I will make them for you right away. Is that okay? Yes. Tang Ya nodded. Tears started to well up in Bei Bei's eyes. While the poison in Tang Ya's body had been gradually removed after being rescued a few weeks ago, her body remained weak, and she could only barely recognize him. But after seeing Hui Yuhao and Wang Donga today, she was actually able to point out the grilled fish she ate. This humongous improvement was more than enough to excite them and give them hope. Hence, today's lunch became grilled fish, and Hui Yuhao, the guy who was arguably the most important person in Tang sect now, became their master chef for the day. He grilled fish for teachers Xiao Ya, Wu Tong, and all his other companions. As he watched his hands produce the sumptuous grilled fish, he found himself thinking about the god of emotions uncontrollably. His culinary art must be at an impossible level. Everyone had lunch together in a joyous atmosphere. Even Tang Ya ate 2 whole grilled fish by herself before falling asleep in Bei's embrace with a sweet smile. However, after the sumptuous lunch, Hui Yuhao started to get busy with work. There were simply too many things for him to do. The moment lunch was finished, Xian Ziwen pulled Hui Yuhao into the research institute without any regard for his honeymoon. Hui Yuhao had disappeared for the past 7 or 8 days. If he had disappeared for any reason other than Tang Wutong, Xian Ziwen would have reprimanded him. Even though he could understand why Hui Yuhao had to leave, Xian Ziwen carried a face of displeasure at the delay that had occurred. Resigned to his ill fate, Hui Yuhao could only follow Xian Ziwen to the research institute. Hui Yuhao knew well that the Tang sect was in no shortage of living space, and Tang Wutong would have no trouble finding a room. Hence, he could follow Xian Ziwen to make soul tools without any worry for her. She had also reassured him that she could continue her cultivation in the Tang sect, and that he could find her whenever he found time to do so. After clearing all his worries of Tang Wutong off his mind, Hui Yuhao dove back into his research. The entire structure is almost complete. The manufacturing process is up next. Xian Ziwen looked pleased as he patted the thick stack of blueprints. He had never built this Class 9 soul tool before, as it had only been conceptualized recently. Even though the experience of their predecessors had played a part in the soul tool's design, it was still something he deserved to be proud of. Hui Yuhao nodded and said, "How do you want me to help you?" Xian Ziwen chuckled, No. You will not be the one helping me. You have mixed up the order. I should be the one helping you. From today onwards, you will begin the construction of this Class 9 soul tool, and I will assist you in your work. If you bump into any problems, I will help you rectify them. Nevertheless, the entire process would be led and carried out by you. What? Hui Yuhao's eyes widened in disbelief. Teacher Xian, I'm not ready for this. You can't push me this hard. Xian Ziwen teased him, Oh come on. Do you really think I don't know you've already acquired your 8th ring? Besides, you previously built a Class 8 soul tool, and are somewhat qualified to be a Class 8 soul engineer. Besides, I'm not pushing you too hard. I'm merely varying my teaching methods according to the capabilities and potential of my disciples. How can you be compared to any average student? You possess such powerful spiritual power and have attained a sufficiently high cultivation. If it were only a Class 8 soul tool, there would have been no need for me to instruct you in person. I'm sure you'll be able to figure it out if I give you time to slowly explore the designs. It will only be a matter of time before you complete the soul tool. Class 9 soul tools are somewhat equivalent to a combination of 20 or 30 Class 8 soul tools. Once you figure out the intricacies behind it, crafting Class 8 soul tools will be a piece of cake for you in the future. But don't underestimate this pill furnace. It contains over 30 different formation arrays, and every single one of them is required to master the construction of a Class 8 soul tool. As long as you can build the bulk of this soul tool, you can claim the title of a Class 8 soul engineer. Okay, that's enough talking. You can start working now. Don't rush into it, and begin from the external shell layer. I have collected all the rare metals and placed them here. You have 1 day to complete the external shell layer. We will discuss the interior after you're done with that. Following which, Xian Ziwen gave a cheeky smile before leaving the research institute. Hui Yuhao's jaw dropped as he watched Xian Ziwen leave. This is a freaking Class 9 soul tool, seems like I need to tone down a bit. Being too outstanding can be bad sometimes. If it were someone else instead of me, I'm sure Teacher Xian would not have done this. Hui Yuhao knew Xian Ziwen's temperament very well. There was no chance of him changing his mind after he had made a decision. Since Teacher Xian wants me to do it, bring it on then. But it's really quite a shame that I got myself into this mess just when I was finally reunited with Wutong. I thought I would finally have time to spend with her. But the mere thought of Wutong took away all the frustration in his heart as a blissful look appeared on his face. I will fight on just so I can better protect Wutong in the future. Because the design of this pill furnace was made by Hui Yuhao and Xian Ziwen, he was already very familiar with it. After having tried building a few outer shells and formation arrays, he was pretty confident about it. Very soon, Hui Yuhao was able to isolate the blueprints which pertained to the outer shell layer. And just as Xian Ziwen had said, all the rare metals required to craft the pill furnace were all prepared and ready to be used. They were all neatly arranged in front of a wall at the corner of the research institute. However, after examining the outer shell's blueprints closely, Hui Yuhao started to doubt himself. With his current ability, building the outer shell of a soul tool, even a Class 9 soul tool, would not be a problem. However, the outer shell of this pill furnace was quite a bit different from a standard Class 9 soul tool. While it was common for Class 9 soul tools which were not close combat tools to be made from simpler outer shell materials, this pill furnace was the exception. Firstly, it had to be able to withstand high temperatures and pressure. Hence, even though it was just the outer shell, the material used to build the outer shell had to be carefully chosen. Being a perfectionist, Xian Ziwen had chosen an exceptional metal, Scarlet Devil Essence, to be one of the ingredients for the outer shell. It was an exceptionally rare fire-type metal. This rare fire-type metal contained a humongous amount of fire-type elemental energy. Its body itself was also incredibly tough. Because it contained fire-type elemental energy, it was resistant to all types of fire, even ultimate fire. This ingredient was often used only for soul tools which were Class 8 and above because it was particularly hard to shape or carve. Because it was impossible to smelt it, one had to rely on his or her soul power to force its shape to change. During this process, one had to put up with a fire and poison attack from the Scarlet Devil Essence. Scarlet Devil Essence was simply too rare and precious. Even Xian Ziwen's pill furnace's outer layer could not be entirely constructed from it. Nevertheless, the pill furnace's interior was coated with a centimeter-thick layer of Scarlet Devil Essence. Hui Yuhao had no idea how Xian Ziwen had managed to find so much of this precious metal. No wonder Teacher Xian wanted me to build this outer shell. Even though he was already a titled Doluo and a Class 9 soul engineer, Teacher Xian would still need at least 2 weeks to build this outer shell. Hui Yuhao might be talented, but it was simply not possible for him to be compared to Teacher Xian when it came to raw, actual ability. Teacher Xian, how could you be so cruel to me? As he stared blankly at the huge block of Scarlet Devil Essence, which was radiating immense heat, Hui Yuhao was speechless. As he coated his hands with diamond-like ice crystals, Hui Yuhao carefully lifted a block of Scarlet Devil Essence that was roughly half a meter across. He placed it on the Soul Tools laboratory bench. Even though he was unwilling to experiment with this block of metal, Hui Yuhao had to admit that it was probably worth enough money to buy a small city. In fact, it was probably so precious that one would not be able to find it on the market. I wonder how many high-level fire-type soul tools I could build with this. I must not waste even a small chunk of it. What? It's so heavy. Yes, the metal was impossibly heavy. Even though this metal block was not very big, it weighed close to 5 tons. It took a lot from Hui Yuhao to even shift it onto the bench. The immense heat from the metal made Hui Yuhao feel very uncomfortable. His ice-type martial soul did not enjoy being in close proximity to such high temperatures. Fortunately, his extreme ice was very resistant towards high temperatures. Under the protection of the Ice Empress pincer, he was able to stay out of harm's way. The biggest problem for the construction of this outer shell was this Scarlet Devil Essence. How am I going to do it? The Life Guardian blade should be able to carve into this block of metal. However, it will only be able to do so by devouring the metal's energy. This would mean that the metal would lose a copious amount of its energy. If Teacher Xian were to know about it, I would definitely be killed. Teacher Xian, do you really think I'm a god? How am I supposed to finish this in a single day? It seems like there's no other way. I must find second senior brother to borrow his darkness green dragon. Without a ranked carving knife's sharpness, I don't think it's possible to carve anything on this metal. It seems like I must slowly dig out the metal from the center of this block before fixing the exterior and carving it into the shape of a shell. Just the thought of it makes me feel tired already. After making up his mind, Yu Hao stood up and got ready to look for Kaitu to borrow his darkness green dragon. However, just when he was about to turn and leave, an idea hit him. Mayan blue flame enshrouds an immortal art. Carving dragons and phoenixes with a cold blade. Following which, Yu Hao felt his forehead turn cold as his eye of destiny opened on its own. A flash of Mayan blue escaped from his eye and suspended itself before him. It was a small knife which was no longer than 5 inches. The tip of the blade was very small and delicate, while the blade and the handle were approximately the same length. The blade was giving off a Mayan blue glow, while the sides of the blade had a scary-looking carving. This is. After hesitating for a short while, Yu Hao's eyes widened in disbelief. Startling changes begin where the masterful hand lands. Carving strokes ripple through the masterpiece 100 times. This ancient art shall outlast eternity. The raised knife, like a crescent moon, will illuminate the cold spring. The ghost carving godly blade. Yes, it was the ghost carving godly blade. Yu Hao suddenly remembered the mysterious god of emotions, and the 2 gifts he had promised him. Could one of them be the ghost carving godly blade? Even though it appeared to be a simple carving knife used for cooking, it was still ultimately a knife used by a god in the god realm. If a god had used it, would it be considered a godly weapon? Just as he was trying to calm himself from his shock, a strange memory began to surface explosively in Yu Hao's mind. These memories were like floodwaters which rushed into the center of his soul. Yu Hao felt as though there were countless slicing and cutting scenes which flitted before his eyes as he tried to control his spiritual seed to store these memories. If it were any other person than Yu Hao, they would have fallen into a state of panic the moment they found their head filled with a huge sea of unknown memories. However, Yu Hao was mentally strong, and even though he was taken aback by this, he was able to calm himself and store these memories in the depths of his soul. When a memory was imprinted onto a person's soul, it was as good as the person's. This memory happened to contain the documentation for a certain carving technique. This carving technique was no ordinary technique, as it seemed to contain some special and mystical portions within it. Yu Hao stood there quietly and closed his eyes as he tried to feel the intricacies behind the techniques within his newly gained memories. As the flashback ran its course in his head, he slowly lifted his right hand and grabbed the ghost-carving godly blade before him. The ghost-carving godly blade seemed to be alive as it gently adjusted itself in Yu Hao's hands. It was like a beautiful cluster of blue flame in his hand. As Yu Hao began to wave the knife in the air gently, the blue flame, or rather the blade, carved out mystical lines and patterns in the air. Those lines and patterns glowed as pitch-black cracks started to form along them. Those lines were thin, and the cracks sealed themselves quickly after they were formed, but the air had undeniably cracked. While Yu Hao was trying to figure out the technique, what left the deepest impression in his mind were some words from a familiar voice. The Rain Dragon's dance carving technique is the most difficult carving technique from my world. After becoming a god, I invested my leisure time into its continual improvement and development. As they say, one's deep mastery of a single skill will open doors to many other skills. You can think of this as a gift from me. I hope you can put in the effort to understand the beauty and intricacies behind this skill. Using the ghost carving godly blade to perform the Rain Dragon's dance carving technique would grant you abilities beyond your imagination. As he opened his eyes and saw the pulsating Mayan blue flame before him, Yu Hao became unbelievably excited. Now, he was certain that everything he had experienced in the god realm was real. Yes, everything was real. Both the ghost carving godly blade and the Rain Dragon's dance carving technique were gifts from the god of emotions. Yu Hao was engulfed by passion and excitement. Even though the Rain Dragon's dance carving technique was mainly used for carving, Yu Hao knew it contained insights on the great Tao of heaven and earth. He was surprised by how much he had already learned in this short period of reminiscence, and knew how studying the technique more would help to shed light on the mysteries of the great Tao of heaven and earth. As he took another look at the block of Scarlet Devil essence, Hu Yuhao no longer showed the same unwillingness to work with it. All that was left was excitement. Let's see what the Rain Dragon's dance can do. Hu Yuhao was an incredibly fast learner. This could be seen from his multiple successes with deep meditation. The Rain Dragon's dance carving technique was already imprinted in the depths of his soul. This was planned by the god of emotions, Rong Mianbing, so that he could pick up the technique quickly. Thus, any preliminary understand or even mastery would not be too challenging. Hu Yuhao waved his right hand as he watched the blue flame, the blade, twitch in his hand. Following which, the blade slashed forward at an unbelievable speed, leaving a mysterious yet alluring flash in its wake. At that very instant, a chip fell off the corner of the block of Scarlet Devil essence silently. It was only when it landed on the bench that the burning fire poison was released. So fast. It feels so good. Right now, Hu Yuhao felt as though the blade had become an extension of his body. This sensation was simply incredible and nearly addictive. Hu Yuhao waved his right hand again, and once more, the Mayan blue flame appeared to merely jolt. As expected, the tough Scarlet Devil essence was sliced like a carrot by the ghost-carving godly blade, which was sharp beyond belief. Slowly, Hu Yuhao started to pick up speed. Because he already possessed an important foundational ability when it came to carving, it was not too challenging for him to pick up the Rain Dragon's dance carving technique. The ghost-carving godly blade did not seem to possess any additional ability beyond its incredible sharpness. It was definitely the sharpest weapon Hu Yuhao had seen in his life. Strangely, no matter how he used the blade of the ghost-carving godly blade would neither come into contact with his fingers nor cut him in any way. Prior to the ghost-carving godly blade, Hu Yuhao had also felt a similar affinity with other weapons. But this was the first time he actually felt a weapon connect with his soul. It was almost an extension of his consciousness and intentions. Hence, the Rain Dragon's dance carving technique would definitely be able to exercise the full capability of the ghost-carving godly blade. After making a round of the Soul Tool Hall and instructing some of the disciples who he felt were gifted, Xianziwen proceeded to where Kaitu was. After Hu Yuhao, Kaitu was definitely the most gifted one. What made Xianziwen particularly pleased about Kaitu was his passion and dedication to researching soul tools. Even though Kaitu did not possess the earth-shattering talents that Hu Yuhao had, Kaitu's foundation was very strong, and his mind was dead set on soul tools. He had built a solid foundation as a Class 7 soul engineer, and in Xianziwen's eyes, Kaitu was most definitely capable of becoming a Class 9 soul engineer. In fact, Xianziwen believed that Kaitu might even surpass Hu Yuhao when it came to soul tool research. As he thought about this, Xianziwen could not help but feel frustrated. Hu Yuhao, why can't you just dedicate your attention and efforts to soul tool research? You are so gifted, yet so unfocused when it comes to such things. I can't imagine what you would be able to achieve if you were to put all your attention into the making of soul tools. Even though his mind harbored such intentions, Xianziwen knew well enough that it was impossible for him to convince Hu Yuhao to commit to soul tools. He knew he was not the only one who held high hopes for Hu Yuhao. There were a whole bunch of people at Shrek Academy who wished Hu Yuhao would become a star in different fields. The fact that Hu Yuhao could take time off to learn how to make soul tools was already a big win for him. No matter what, Xianziwen wanted Hu Yuhao to become a Class 9 soul engineer. Once he is able to build his own Class 9 soul tools, he will finally understand the absolute advantage soul tools hold over soul masters. Once it comes to that stage, I will no longer need to worry about him not putting enough effort into soul tool research. I'm sure if he puts all his effort into the making of soul tools, he has a good chance at becoming a Class 10 soul engineer. After all, he has the potential to become an ultimate Dolor. While he was thinking about all of these things, he arrived at Kaitu's soul tool workshop. Because Kaitu was under Xianziwen's tutelage, the great soul tool researcher, he was able to make significant progress despite researching some immensely difficult Class 8 soul tools. Xianziwen purposely stayed behind at Kaitu's place a little longer to provide detailed instructions and mentoring. Even though he held great expectations for Hu Yuhao, he held Kaitu in similar importance. Kaitu was a pure soul engineer, and Xianziwen believed that sometimes hard work was more important than innate talent. Kaitu was definitely not a disciple worth neglecting nor giving up on. Even though Fan Yu's understanding of soul tools could not match Xian Ziwen's, he was still able to help Kaitu build up a solid foundation for the understanding of soul tools. As long as Kaitu continued to work hard and ensured his soul power's growth was in stride with his soul tool research ability, it would not be long before he became a Class 9 soul engineer. Xian Ziwen was never stingy when it came to sharing what he had learned and knew about soul tools. Because he was serious when it came to teaching, and Kaitu was equally serious when it came to learning, the day passed quickly for both of them. It's time for dinner. Come, let's go and eat now. Xian Ziwen patted Kaitu's shoulder as a rare smile formed on his face. He continued, "You're improving really quickly recently. It seems like you must have developed a deeper understanding of soul tools." Kaitu smiled and replied, "It's all thanks to you." Xian Ziwen laughed, "Oh, come on. The others might not know, but do you think I really can't tell? You might look honest and simple, but you're a very meticulous and hardworking person. You're so much better than Yu Hao. It would be so good if he was half as hardworking as you." As he heard Xian Ziwen mention Hui Yu Hao, Kaitu could not help but ask, "Teacher Xian, why didn't you get Yu Hao to study soul tool construction now that he's finally back?" He realized Xian Ziwen had essentially spent his entire day at his place. Xian Ziwen smiled slyly and replied, "Of course I won't let him go that easily. I have given him an extremely difficult task and told him to complete it in a single day. Come and follow me. I'm going to show you how this lad is going to fail so badly. We must give him a punishment once in a while. If not, his ego would expand beyond proportions." Kaitu smiled. "Teacher Xian, you have wronged Yu Hao. He is not someone who would let praises go to his head easily. HMPH. It is still important to wake this lad up when necessary. We need to stop him from becoming complacent. In a soul engineer's line of work, hard work is as important as talent. It's no use for him to only possess talent. If not for his solid foundation, I would have chased him out." After hearing his teacher's words, Kaitu couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Teacher Xian, your words might sound tough, but they can't hide your love for Hui Yu Hao. I don't think you could even bear to chase him away." Xian Ziwen glared at him and threatened, "I see. It seems like all of you brothers plan to cover for one another, is that it? You little rascal. Do you want me to give you an impossible task tomorrow as well? No? Just pretend I didn't say anything at all." Kaitu was scared after hearing the threat from Xian Ziwen. He quickly added, "It's definitely time for Yu Hao to be knocked down and reminded of what is required to become a successful soul engineer. You should most definitely punish him to the best of your ability. Are you still human? He's your junior brother, and yet you're trying to get him into trouble. How can I let someone like you inherit my skills? You'd better watch how you carry yourself, or I'll chase you out." Kaitu's mouth twitched, but he knew there was nothing he could say. As Xian Ziwen watched his disciple who was lost for words, he let out a rare laugh. "All right, let's go and see how Yu Hao will make a joke out of himself." As he spoke, he brought Kaitu to his laboratory. While Xian Ziwen was not expecting to see any results from Hui Yu Hao, he had still handed the task to him. He never planned for Hui Yu Hao to finish it in a single day. In his mind, he knew it should take at least 10 days before Hui Yu Hao could complete it. Scarlet Devil Essence was no joke. Even if it was Xian Ziwen, a proper title Doluo, who was doing it, it would take at least 3 days. Even so, he would be adversely affected by the fire poison from the Scarlet Devil Essence. The only reason why he dared to let Hui Yu Hao play with the Scarlet Devil Essence was because Hui Yu Hao possessed ultimate ice. With this ability, he shouldn't be hurt in the process of carving the metal. Very soon, both of them arrived at the doorstep of the laboratory. However, Xian Ziwen did not walk in directly. He merely poked his head in to see what Hui Yu Hao was doing. But the moment he got a good look at what was going on inside, he exploded with rage. "You spoiled rascal!" Xian Ziwen cursed as he stomped into his laboratory. Even though Kaitu did not know what was going on, he rushed into the laboratory behind Xian Ziwen. Despite not knowing what Hui Yu Hao had done, He knew from Xian Ziwen's look that he was probably very angry. Kaitu had noticed how his stare suddenly turned steely, and decided to rush in to help de-escalate the situation. The moment he stepped in through the door and saw what Hui Yuhao was doing, Kaitu immediately understood why Xian Ziwen was so angry. Hui Yuhao was lying on the bench and sleeping. His breathing was unbelievably even, and his face was radiant a healthy flush. Anyone would be able to tell that he was taking a comfortable nap. This video will end here.